All right, are we rolling now?
We're speeding, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So I'm going to first of all say thank you, ladies, for being here. I'm going to say thanks to our host friends here at Plush. It's awesome to be here in Manhattan and capturing this on camera. It's actually really fun because this is the first time on the Fabulist we're doing live video. So welcome, ladies.
Nice.
So good to have you.
Thanks for having us.
So welcome to this episode of The Fabulist that I am working title. I've been calling it The Studio Was Just the Start. Here comes Act 2. Today's conversation isn't going to be a rendition of what's it like to run a studio. What I'm curious to do instead is to unpack what happens after you've scaled that first big mountain, only to realize there's more beyond. So in other words, I'm curious to explore Act 1, how building a studio, growing the team, delivering the work actually evolves into what we're calling Act 2, which is something bigger, probably more personal, and maybe unexpected. It's a second act that's rooted more in influence and reinvention and meaning. Now, by the way, I have to call out one interesting little nugget I came across. I think it was Betsy on your team that pointed out a statistic that said 0.1% of founders in our industry are women. Which means if we gathered the top 3,000 founders of our industry into one place, you three would be pretty much the only women. So
Wait, 0.1%?
0.1%.
Is that true? Are you
Again.
lying on a podcast?
I know, right?
That seems really low.
We're gonna like put it in the show notes because it's a stat from it's a real thing.
Wow.
So here's the thing though, that makes this moment rare, but rather than marvel at that, I just want us to normalize it. Because that's not really what this conversation is about. So with that, let's get into it. Can you do me a favor to anyone that doesn't know you and introduce yourself? Shawna, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm Shawna Schultz. I'm co-founder and executive producer at Mass Effects Media and the newly founded post facility 38th and Post.
1, 2, 3. Listen. It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now. Cause baby, I feel real good and I wish I would. Watch out now. It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now. Everybody watch out. Watch out now. I'm ready for a good time.
All right, welcome to New York. Good to have you in town from Denver.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, Katwo.
I am Katwo Puertollano, co-founder and creative director at Rezonate.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Based here
Yes,
in New York and
Manila.
Manila. Okay, very cool. Thank you. And Samantha.
I'm Samantha Louise. I'm co-founder and finance and operations director of Versus, a creative studio here in New York City.
All right, fantastic. We got through that. Now we can get to some good stuff. Now I'm just going to ask each of you, how many years have you been in business? And can you briefly summarize that journey so far? Because when somebody hears Mass FX, sure they can look that up, but give us like the nutshell version. How many years in business and what's that story been like?
Yeah, so March of this year, it's 14 years in business. It started just me and my husband Matt, and in our spare bedroom for maybe 3 or 4 years, doing documentaries and motion graphics. And then as we hired our first employees and got our first office, we kind of grew to 5, really still focusing on that motion design and visual effects as our niche. And I think within the last few years, as we grew and scaled very intentionally, we realized we wanted to tackle more of post-production, so offering finishing, sound, and color. And so we scaled up our team further to that. And so now Mass FX and now our sister brand 38th and Post, we offer finishing services and the motion graphics and visual effects for documentaries, and then working directly with brands and some other agencies.
Nice. Okay. Katwo, your turn. How many years has it been? What's it been like?
I've been doing this for 17 years.
17 years.
We started in 2008 in Quezon City. It's a suburb or a city, maybe an hour outside of Manila. Spare bedroom. I started out as an illustrator. Nico was a commercial director. I finished with a degree in mass communication, so I didn't know you could make a living out of being an illustrator. And Nico, coming fresh from New York City, I didn't realize that there was this world of motion graphics and you could direct animation for TV commercials. And so we did that thing. Our first office was above, literally, if you've been to Asia, you know, tuk-tuks, like you see those motorcycles, above a garage. It was a small space. And then eventually I got my green card in 2013, so I had to move to New York. By that time, we've already scaled the team in, at least now, in the central business district of Manila. And so we kept that studio and opened our first office in New York City in 2013. And then, you know, from doing illustration to branding, we've done more motion graphic stuff, you know, also work on documentaries and content. And in the last few years, you know, we really wanted to be more part of our community and be more present for Asian American communities. So now we're doing work that's in the intersection of commerce, art, and culture in those communities. So, yeah.
Who is Nico?
Oh, Nico is my co-founder and husband and father of my child.
And by the way, thanks for being at the dinner last night, the both of you.
Yes.
That was a good time.
Yes.
That's why we're all a little maybe tired and sleepy today, but we won't go there. Okay, Samantha, how many years has Versus been around?
It's a little over a decade.
A little over a
Founded
decade.
in 2013. And yeah, it was co-founded between Justin and myself. We shared a desk and quickly grew beyond that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always been concentrating my role as running the business side, managing the finances, allowing the creative team to thrive, and basically offering whatever I can do to support that. I stay in the background a little bit, but yeah.
I love that you use the word allowing as if
them.
they're getting away with something. You know what I mean?
A little bit, right?
Sort of, right? Sometimes, because it's also.
I have to wrangle them in, I think, a little bit, but
Yeah.
no, they've got.
But you're enabling, you're empowering, you're allowing, and I think that's something that's kind of interesting, just sort of from where I sit, is right. You're all three running different sort of sizes, a little bit different models, but I also think like you're more of a creative. You're more what I would call operations and finance, right? And Shawna, maybe you're sort of that odd unicorn in the middle, sort of?
Yeah, I might, because I'm a director. I love to direct
Right.
live action. We do a lot of motion graphics, but like live action and documentary are my sweet spot there. But then, of course, I had the business mind between me and Matt, and so Matt is a brilliant creative director and graphics and animation and design. So it really, I always feel like our skills are very complementary in that we're Whereas I, as a creative, thrive. It still fills in where he, as a creative, thrives.
Right. And by the way, who is Matt?
Oh, sorry. Matt is my. How did you say it?
Right?
Matt is my co-founder, husband, and father of my child.
So I just this instant noticed something really interesting. Co-founder, partner, right? Really interesting. So yeah, and I also think of you as, I'm going to use the word sales, biz dev, whatever, which I think, I don't know, do you do much of that in your business? Or are you really the creative that is like?
No, I think I touch on every aspect of the business, but in varying levels. I always do the presentations, but not really maintaining the relationships. But when I'm in the project, I'm always making sure the client feels supported, confident, and heard. But yeah, I do touch upon it once in a while.
Yeah, sure. And Samantha, I'm curious, you don't consider yourself a creative. You've never been like on the box and making the stuff, which I think is actually really cool, because I can imagine so many people that might be listening to this or watching this. Almost all of these, now let's just say it, all studios are started by creatives who then wake up one day after achieving some sort of success and say, oh crap, I'm running a business, but I don't know nothing about business, right? So I have this feeling that you and Justin's partnership has been part of the secret to that success. I don't know if do you agree?
Yeah, a little bit. I think between him, he's very driven, as you know.
Yes.
And he does, oddly enough, have a very business-focused perspective in mind. So he's able to bring a very interesting combination. I don't think a lot of creative studios have.
Right.
That he is the executive creative director. I do run the business end of things. I'm not a creative director or not a creative leader. But yeah, he's able to kind of straddle that line, and I think that's very much part of the secret sauce of how Versus has succeeded.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I wonder if his ambition as a creative, but also in business, it's what you bring that creates that yin and yang that makes that magic combination. All right, so let me start to tiptoe into this larger idea, this thought that I'm having. Okay, here's the question. So 14 years, 17 years, and what, 11-ish? 13?
Yeah, a little over 10, yeah.
Okay, a little over 10.
Yeah.
By the way, congrats to all of you, because your first job in business is to be in business, to stay in business. And you've been doing that for quite a stretch, right? Like, yeah, we all know what it takes, right? Exactly. Did you get that handshake on camera? That was good. All right, now, but here's the question. I'm going to assume there was a moment. So I'm assuming, so correct me if I'm wrong, but when did you first feel your role, or maybe your ambition, start shifting beyond the day-to-day running the projects, okay, to something else? No?
I know it's a very interesting question, because I don't think that's changed for me much. I very much run the business day to day still. Maybe I have a bigger team that I can lean on and bring in their expertise more than it was in day one. But yeah, very hands-on. I think probably most of us are. But yeah, it's tough. I don't know if that's really shifted enough yet. Maybe on the horizon. It's coming up, but.
So you know what I read into that is that because you've been on the business side of the business since the beginning, that role, that function, it just comes naturally to you. You've been playing that part, which is in contrast to, I think, founders that are the creatives that start realizing, I need to know what Samantha knows. I gotta get good at that stuff. So, do you have is that maybe a description of your journey a bit on that?
I feel like the way that you pose that question, I imagine this giant turning point in our company which was when we worked on The Social Dilemma, which is a documentary on Netflix. And it was, I think I described it as
record-breaking, smashing. Yeah,
yeah,
huge,
we had
huge.
no idea what it was going to do, but I knew when I watched that rough cut, I was like, the world needs this film, and I need to be involved with it. And we were understaffed, underprepared, and did not have the money or the capabilities, the structure, the processes, the hierarchy to actually do that, but somehow we pulled it off.
Okay.
It was one of the biggest challenges we've ever taken on, but deeply fulfilling. And Matt and I remember we pulled into our garage. Soon after that, we lost staff. We burned people out, and then of course the pandemic came right after that. So it was just like a brutal shift. But we were sitting in our garage, and the question was, do we have to make a major change? Like, either we need to staff accordingly and figure out how we run a company that can handle doing graphics for feature films, or we need to go back to our explainer video days and shrink back down to 4 or 5 people, and just, we were so profitable, it was so great. And this, is so different and so hard. But the decision we made was that the deeply fulfilling side of telling big stories that help change the world, which is maybe overstating my work, but that's what drives me. And I think that was a big transition moment to say, I have to figure it out. I have to become something I'm not, which is operations and a business woman that can go and find a way to build this company and a structure that can actually handle these things.
Right.
And I think that was the big inflection point that then, as I think about where I am now, pushing into saying I want to help filmmakers tell their stories and I want to help brands tell their stories, then brings me beyond where I am now, which is I want to help grow the industry where we are in Colorado, because I don't want to leave. I love Colorado, I love Denver, I love this area, but we don't quite have what we need. And in my opinion, it's there, we're just not organized enough.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's where my vision has become a little bit more than just my company, of I could actually be a community leader. I have resources, I have connections that other people don't have, I have staff and know-how that other people don't have that I could help lead the charge. Right. And so I think that's, when you read that question, it really resonates with me, because I think I didn't mean to do this, but
right.
I think I saw a need and I was like, actually, I'm pretty good at that. I could help scale and grow our industry.
I mean, what's interesting is, in a way, you start off the journey for one reason and then it becomes about something else. And of course, as someone who ran Impossible Pictures in Denver, in a way, the generation before you, of course, I take tremendous pride in Shawna, keep going, right? It's awesome that you're sort of continuing that mantle or taking that torch forward. But it's also interesting to think, because I know in my journey of 20 years, it was around around year 12 or so for me, that I started to realize, somebody has to be the leader. And I didn't really want to be a leader. I didn't fancy myself a leader. But I started to realize I do feel called to solve a certain crazy problem out there in the world. And if I don't step up as a leader, somehow become the leader, no one else will. And if I don't do that, I and my family, my team, my community, my clients, whatever, are going to suffer. And so there's this weird moment of okay, I have to step up. And I used to be a creative, but now I'm going to be the business owner and be a leader. And that was kind of a weird transition for me. Now I look back and say, well, I think that was just part of the natural evolution, right? And I'm sort of hearing that in your story.
Yeah, and I think the connection between owners is hugely valuable as well, because I feel versus you're who inspired us to go out and start doing events and connecting our industry. I think you did Tunnel. Did you start that 3 years ago?
The Tunnel was an event that we threw, last year.
Last year, the concept of you saying, going outside of something your clients asked you to do, but kind of connecting your two different clients. And I remember after I heard Justin speak about that, I was like, how do we do that thing but for filmmakers? And that was one big push of like, we should be doing like monthly meetups. And then that pushed into, well, maybe we should do like a film industry town hall. And I was like, well, maybe I could just lead that. And maybe it just kind of went into, how could we give back and create these spaces where people connect? And that elevates you to be the expert amongst your clients, that now they're turning to you. And I think that tunnel was what inspired us originally, which is cool to be here with you.
No, but that's awesome that you're in a, I guess, somewhat of a smaller community, I guess, than New York City, that you can kind of build your path to be a representative of your industry in your community. That's very cool.
Yeah, definitely very different than here in New York or in LA. You can be a big fish in a little pond out there.
So Samantha, you were saying your role has sort of stayed similar, we'll call it. I'm sure it's evolved and grown. I'm curious, Katwo, has there been a shift for you? Because, wait, let me get this right, 17 years.
17
Something tells
years.
me, that you started the journey with sort of one intention and dream in mind. And what is it now? How has it shifted?
That's so interesting. Two things. I feel like because the Pope has just been elected, I was like, what does the term calling mean to you? Like, if I grew up Catholic, so I'm very aware of those terms. Like, you have a calling. Like, it's almost like that's where the ikigai is. It's where what you want to do and what serves the community, that's the intersection. And I've always feel like, when we started the business, I would do everything. I would clean the bathrooms. I would drive my employees to the train station. I would do whatever it takes to fulfill that, like, I'm a responsible human being box. I love that. I love doing that. And then the last few years, after the pandemic, I really, and then as we took on bigger projects, I started to think about where my power lies, where my influence lies, because I could do great work and just keep shorter hours. And then I realized, there's, delegating, being aware of operations, the stuff you both said. But now I'm really thinking, number two is, first the calling, is like, my greatest superpower is I do not think. I do not overthink things. I just do stuff. So I wish I had a vision for things. But I really just follow the grooves of my curiosity and try to be present at the time where I'm in. But this is a question I wrestle with myself. Where does my power lie? Where is the maximum impact that I can have with this little work that I can do? So for that, I really think about my time and how precious it is. And I will say this, I will talk about the M word, I will talk about motherhood. But that is for me, the most important use of my time right now, is to raise a good child in this world. And my question is always like, how can I live a life that fulfills all of those? So I don't know what that looks like. I don't have a vision for it, but I know I am I will do whatever it takes. This is my calling. And I just lead where the curiosity stands. So I don't know where I'm going next. Joel.
What I loved was I felt this energy when you said, this is my calling. Like, I very much was like, wow, felt this emotion kind of stir up on me. I'm curious, does that just thought resonate with you?
What resonated with me was, where is my power? Yeah. I thought the way that you said that was really interesting, of thinking about what power we have as leaders, as business owners, over our employees, over our clients, over the work. And I think owning that power is something that I found took me a long time to figure out how to do, to step into that leadership role and say, I'm in charge, or I actually do have good instincts, and I do think we should do this, and like doubting yourself. I feel like that has held me back, and there was a moment I think I always call it my imposter monster that sits here. It's got a really big mouth. And it's always whispering things. I'm just like, yeah, but are you even good enough to have imposter syndrome? You know, but like that, to be able to say, I am actually.
You do have to remind yourself.
Yeah, and take that back. I really love that too, especially balancing motherhood and personal life when you have such ambition as a leader to be pushing in your work as well.
100%. I think motherhood is what enabled me. So now I have friends that are not in the industry. And we had this fun thing with other mom friends. They were like, what do you actually do? One is a nurse, one is a full-time model, one is a gemologist, one does risk, whatever, for financial firms. We had the PowerPoint presentation. This is what I do at work. This is what I do. I save lives. This is a machine that does things. I'm like, I try to make things not boring for folks. And then they were like, so if you own your business, that means, wow, people work for you. No, I'm accountable to my employees. I'm accountable to my clients. I am accountable for my partner. So this is why I say it's a calling, because you really it's a service you are called to serve. And if you are not happy in that world, this is a hard life to be in, but it is a call to serve. Next thing I've realized I'm an old mom, geriatric pregnancy, everyone, hashtag geriatric pregnancy.
Love that word.
Love it, big fan. But you grow into a confidence that you don't give up about anything. It's because you're trying to keep a child safe. You are just trying to slog the day through. And that just made me realize, like, for example, Asian Americans have this problem with saying sorry a lot. I'm like, am I going to apologize for apologizing too much? Maybe the world just needs to change and like actually go into a meeting and apologize because everything is effed. So a part of me is just like growing more angry, but also I don't have the benefit of time for self-righteous indignation. So I feel like I am very lucky to be a geriatric mom because you kind of grow into your power more. And this is actually something you told me in LA. Like, there's a season for that. I think that's what you told me, or there's a time to be a parent. Because I was dealing with like a lot when I saw you in 2022. But like, as you said, I've taken a lot from Shawna because there's so few of us, Joel. And so these friendships, these conversations, I see you like once or twice a year. She'll always give me a nugget, just a little bit, just enough, that it pushes me for 3 years. And that's like the power of like this friendship, this collaboration. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
I did not answer any question, but I gave my thoughts.
I loved all of it.
You took us on a little journey. I loved it.
I did. It
was
just
fun.
a self-righteous indignation that has no place for it, but yeah.
Well, I do love the point that you're making in it, because I've been on this, I think we're all on the same journey of, as we get older, we actually get way more comfortable in our own skin.
Yes.
We stop apologizing for who we are. We start to embrace things like self-love, and we don't have to explain or convince anyone of anything. And I don't know, I just celebrate that and go, keep going, right? Because the more you show up as you, the more that we're just like, girl, let's just keep going. All right, so I have this question that maybe is a part two to this thread that we're on, which is, what are you building now that your past self couldn't have imagined? Because when you started, you were like, oh, we're building this. Now you kind of touched on it, Shawna, a bit, when you said there was that moment in the garage, was it? When you had that conversation. But when you think about what you're building now, I'm even thinking of your, is it your pirate ship analogy?
Our expedition ship.
Your expedition ship. Sorry, I made it into a pirate ship.
I like that you've turned us evil.
I mean, come on.
We will take what we need.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, what are you building now that's not what you originally set out to build?
I think some of it is to be able to be a supporter to the storytellers that we get to work with. And I think the vision so Mass FX Media was doing graphics and visual effects, and we were just kind of, because Mass FX, like we were very stuck in that niche. We love documentary, that's our background, so now we have that. We love working with brands, helping them tell those stories visually. But we would sit with these filmmakers for what feels like years, months and months, helping them finish their documentaries. And then they would send the sound off to LA and the color off to New York and the, finishing off to London. And it was like, what if we could offer filmmakers this hub where they could stay and finish their story and not color our graphics and not, I was like, how can we continue to be a part of that journey? And so that was part of our vision. And as we started, what was 2020? Well, 2020 was the year of growth that then ended up not being. But we started out that year of like, this is the year we're doing it. And then it took like 3 or 4 years to get through that. Yeah.
I think I remember that year with you guys.
Because we had finished Social Dilemma and then, but anyway, as we dreamed up the next, what we called Mass Effects 3.0. So we had 1.0, which was a rowboat, just me and Matt in there rowing away.
Yeah.
2.0 was we got a motor, we got a little speedboat. But the speedboat, Matt and I could still take that rope if whatever went wrong and swim it to shore. And we told our team, Mass Effects 3.0, what we're building now is an expedition ship, which means Matt and I can't take that rope and swim us to shore, and we're going beyond the horizon. And so what we're building here is Matt and I have to learn how to delegate. We have to learn how to be leaders. We grew our team to 15. We built our office, 38th and Post, which has a theater, a color suite. Like, it's everything we needed to do what we dream of doing, which is supporting filmmakers and brands to help like complete their stories in post.
Right.
And as I did that, I was like, we're gonna have to market to new people because we're known for graphics, so we have to build this new brand. How do we find the right connections? And it happened to be at that time the film study came out. So I was at Sundance. I think you were at that same dinner as we were talking about the film study.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, someone should. We just kept, someone should. In order for us to grow our industry, someone should. And we kept naming all the things someone should do. And 2 years later, I was like, I'm gonna.
Right.
I'm just like, I think
you volunteered.
If we need a task force to help unify our industry, I know how to unify people. I'm creative. I understand our industry. Maybe I should lead that. And so, and then I sought out permission, which is my whole other theory. I have a permission syndrome, which is the other monster that lives on my shoulder.
Okay.
But I went and sought permission for the people that I thought were doing it, who were all like, oh no, I'm not dealing with that. And so I just began asking the questions, and that's grown into what I've now coined as FAMCO, which is the Film and Media Community Coalition of Colorado. So FAMCO cubed, CO cubed, right? And we're here to unify the FAM, film and media industry, or the FAMI. I'm working on that one. We'll see if we get there.
That's just a work in progress.
It's taken years since that study came out, and just like as I built this vision for what Mass Effects and 38th and Post and what like this Post Hub, was like, well, we have to build the industry. If we're going to be successful here in Colorado, we don't have the fruitfulness of LA and New York of like, we're going to have to really unify and help organize our industry here. And so I took that charge and began this, what I'd like to call a community movement. I don't want it to become a thing because I want it to be owned by all the organizations and businesses and leaders within our industry there in Colorado.
Right.
But I think that's where it came from, was this vision to follow my dream of building a company that will serve the filmmakers. And I'm like, where are they? And I was like, well, I'm going to have to collect them and bring them into the FAM, all together.
So I'm thinking, and again, for Katwo and Samantha's sake, there's this moment a few months ago when I was in Denver and you hosted, what was the name of the dinner?
The Colorado Creators Alliance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in a way, the biggest takeaway I remember from that evening was the moment when a few of us in the room with all these other founders and leaders said, Sundance is coming to Boulder. Is it what, a year, 2 from now?
Yeah, 2027.
Okay,
yeah,
27.
Right.
And we said, we can't wait for permission. We just have to go make that our thing. This is our moment. We should just rent the space, come together, create some sort of a name, brand it, invite everybody into it. And there were a lot of people in the room that I think that were like, well, can we do that?
Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah. Don't we
Should we call and ask permission
right,
from
doesn't
Sundance?
somebody, so that permission forgiveness dynamic, I think is really interesting. Now, but I'm also curious because I'm going to turn to Samantha because you said something there a second ago when you said, it's not like New York or LA where oh, it's all figured out,
It
and
was
it's all
abundant.
right, and there's things are organized, and everybody's, you know, the leaders are appointed, and everybody's working on it. Because I'm just going to guess, Samantha, that it's not actually that simple. Because I think when I think of what Versus is doing and the journey you've been on, that similarly you've just been pushing ahead and making it happen. It's not like there were people that showed up and suddenly said, yes, I give you permission to build what you've built.
No, of course. And I think what's the expedition ship, right?
Yeah.
I think that is such a smart way to describe it, because it is very much just, that's something that will take you anywhere. You can go anywhere in an expedition ship, right? You can cross the Atlantic, you can go anywhere. So I think that's where we have been in our space right now, where we're developing original content. We have a bit of a global footprint. We're really moving forward.
Yeah, because you're developing, I mean, there's multiple businesses or alliances or other things. And of course, I can remember the moment when I was at your Christmas party, and it may have been 3-4 years ago. And I remember Justin saying, yeah, we're going to get into original content and programming. And I'm a little embarrassed to admit, at the time, I was like, good luck with that. And then a year later at the Christmas party, I remember there was a whiteboard in one of the edit suites that I was like, what's that? And he goes, those are all the shows we have in production, or that are being finished, or that are whatever. And it was a list of 12 things. Mad respect, mad respect. So how would you maybe summarize this thought of what are you building now that you weren't building, or you didn't imagine back when it was just you and Justin in a co-working space?
Definitely. I think the fact that literally started from the two of us sharing a desk, into building a large studio where we have very much concentrated on making it a space where people want to come to, our clients want to come to, our employees want to come to. It's like a home away from home a little bit. But I think the original IP, we're actually working on something together. Shawna brought us.
I know, I love this, right?
I love that.
Right. Collaborators.
I know.
Co-conspirators.
I think, concentrating on getting into areas that are a little bit out of our comfort zone and building beyond that.
Well, I'm also hearing, because when you talked about the space, the physical space that Versus has, which I think is in a way like a physical manifestation or symbol of what you're building, but you talked about it being like a space that people want to be a part of, but I'm also thinking that in a way represents a story that you're inviting talent and clients and collaborators into as well. That you're, because you and Justin are both come be a part of this story. Doesn't that sound cool?
Yeah, it's a culture, I think, that we've tried to shape and build and refine over these years. And yeah, I think we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah. All right, so I have a quote. Do any of you know Donald Miller? The name? Okay, he's
Blue Like Jazz.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he wrote another book that was 1,000,000 Miles in 1,000 Years. So I love this quote. Sort of changed my life, because this is where we're going to get into Act 2. So the quote is, if you watched a movie about a guy who wanted a Volvo and worked for years to get it, you wouldn't cry at the end when he drove off the lot testing the windshield wipers. You wouldn't tell your friends you saw a beautiful movie, or go home and put on a record to think about the story you'd seen. The truth is, you wouldn't remember that movie a week later, except you'd feel robbed and want your money back. Nobody cries at the end of a movie about a guy who wants a Volvo. But we spend years actually living those stories and expect our lives to be meaningful. The truth is, if what we choose to do with our lives won't make a story meaningful, it won't make a life meaningful either. So I'm curious to ask how we're building meaningful stories, not just a business. So the question here is, I know I'm springing this on you, is how are you navigating the tension between staying close to the craft and sort of what you initially set out to do versus something more expansive? Like, where are you actually finding meaning, fulfillment today compared to where you used to. And Katwo, I feel like you have a thought on the tip of your tongue.
I know. Just want to go out. I think for me, we've sort of curated the clients that we want to work with, and it really is the intersection between commerce, art, and culture, and a part of it is our identity. And I think over the last few years, we've just been more vocal about invisibility in our space and what it's like to inhabit this body, and like what are the things that are just naturally inequitable. If you inhabit this body, you look like me, you talk like me. And I think, and this is why the calling is so important, because there's some stories, there's some insights that only we can tell. And I think there is, again, going back to the idea of power and how you serve others, is that using what I know and empowering other directors who look and sound like me get their stories across. And we found that in working with Megan Thee Stallion, working with the director, the feedback was life-defining for me. We felt seen. I felt for her. This is amazing. I didn't know animation can do this. It's the best feedback as a creative you could ever expect, and it made me realize I should advocate for that director. I was in this meeting where, you don't have to put this one, I'll just tell the story. My director is a queer Black woman. The way she got judged behind the scenes was heartbreaking. This was the first woman who got Prime Video their Emmy. And it's like, it was just heartbreaking. For me, my job was to make sure to remind people in that meeting, she's the only person in this room who has a vision like this, who can get it done. And our job is to support that vision. So for me, so now we can cut away from this conversation. For me, my job is to make sure that I can move a path forward for people who are on the margins. And that's why it was really important for me and Nico to work closer to culture. And then, because not a lot, again, 0.01%, not a lot of people look like me, I also sound like me, or inhabit my body in this industry. I get to forge a path, but that path hasn't been made for me. So you kind of have to be always on an expedition. This is all tying together, but it is really an expedition for people like us, because there's no path like it. And so it's just believing in a vision and making sure that you know who to support, and you know who to hang in with, meaning like the community that you've built is really important, and making sure that you're just steadfast in that. So I think, I don't know if my answer is exactly, but my sentiment is there.
I mean, what I loved about what you shared there is there is this, well, I'll say this, there's maybe a common answer that we will belittle ourselves when we say, I'm running a business, it's just commerce, it's only commercial art, whatever. But in a way, what I'm hearing you say is there actually is something deeper, because you're unleashing, you're enabling, you're empowering certain creative voices, opinions, what have you. And I think what's interesting is, as I know for all three of you, as you're moving forward and creating, you're creating stuff that the world sees. And your opinions, your talent, your ideas show up in that. And so you're putting those things forward. And then the business, of course, is what gives it impact, gives it reach. So I don't know, what of her story maybe resonated for you when you think of like that second act? Here's what's meaningful about this.
Yeah, I kind of felt this string of like legacy of like what do we want to leave behind? And I think that quote made me think that we can sometimes put this unnecessary, like, I don't know what the right word is, like, well, it's got to be the Maserati or whatever the nicer car is. This idea that if you're not building toward that, even the language he used of like, you're boring life with your Volvo, but you're like, well, the Volvo also gets me to where I need to go, and it won't break down or whatever. I don't know about Volvos, but I think sometimes when in the darkest moments of being an owner, when you are like, why am I doing this? Like, well, I haven't slept in weeks. Am I pushing this hard for nothing? What am I building towards? You can be hard on yourself if you are just wanting the Volvo of like for a while after the pandemic and after some hard situations, it was like, I just want stability. Like, I just want a company where people will just come in and we'll just make little videos and I just need a moment of stability. And I was seeking that. And I would be hard on myself to be like, well, shouldn't we be dreaming bigger? And I think there's, like, I think you mentioned seasons of like, there's seasons for everything. And when you think bigger of like, what legacy am I leaving? What are people going to remember? Right now, we're shifting local. Like, I'm thinking about building one-on-one relationships and thinking about my local community of like, when things feel very chaotic, it's like, okay, what can I affect? And I can affect this, wherever I am, my employees, the way I run my company. If I see injustice in the world, I can make that different just here at Mass Effects. Like, we'll run it differently here. We'll think equitably and those types of things. And so I think as we think about that legacy, we can't be too hard on ourselves either, because there will be seasons where we're winning awards and we're in the spotlight, and there will be years where you're grinding and trying to get to that next phase.
Yeah.
And there's beauty and merit in all of it, in a sense.
So I'm remembering, I guess it was just over a year ago, I was doing one of my Fuse dinners here in New York, and Justin was there, and I remember I asked everyone at the table, kind of did this last night as well, I asked everyone at the table, what is it you really, really want? I mean, really want. And of the 20 people, I think 18 of them said some version of stability.
Yeah.
One of them that did not was Justin. And his word was something like, I don't know, it wasn't stability, it was ambition or expansiveness or something or whatever. And I remember him ranting at everyone saying, are you crazy? That ain't what you signed up for. If you want stability, you're in the wrong room. All right, so let me share another quote, okay? This is a little backstory about Lewis and Clark. After trekking across the American continent, they finally reached what they believed was the high point of their journey, literally, meaning the top of the Rocky Mountains. All along this journey, they had expected this moment when they would reach the top of the Rocky Mountains, and then they would look over the other side and see this easy, gradual descent all the way to the Pacific. And what actually happened was when they reached that high mountain pass, they looked out, and guess what they saw? More mountains as far as the eye can see. And there's this moment when Clark wrote in his journal, simply, immense ranges of high mountains still to the west. So I'm curious, have we all felt that moment when we've climbed that biggest mountain, whatever that mountain was? I'm going to launch a studio, right? I'm going to build this thing in Manhattan, right? We're going to have a team in Manila and New York, whatever it is. Okay, but you climb that mountain only to realize there's another one beyond it, and probably another one, and another one, and another one. So this is what I'm calling, the next mountain is Act 2. So what excites you or scares you about your Act 2, Samantha?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say it's like I feel like every year we're starting over almost. It's like we have to remember to build up that clientele. We have a really great client retention rate, but it is an ongoing struggle, and there's more mountains that you have to overpass, and it is scary, but I think it's constantly moving forward, seeing new areas that you can dive into that are, from the creative perspective, from my perspective, where we're constantly evolving and changing our operating systems, our infrastructure. We have built an incredible team of professionals that I can lean on. Our head of production, she has insights from her past jobs that I can lean into. We can evaluate and change, and it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
But I think because I've always been so hands-on and kind of ready for it, whatever comes at us.
So something that you mentioned I think is just worth calling out for people that might look at the position that the three of you have reached and think, oh, well, if I got there, because something that you just mentioned, I want to just confirm, because this was also my experience, is every project, every client, every account is not to be taken for granted. Mm-hmm. Every single one. Like, there is nobody handing you shit at any time. So there's this relentless tenacity that it requires to, like, stay in business. Mm-hmm. And is that the case?
Yeah, very much. I think it's like what you mentioned about what Justin had said at previous dinners. It's very on brand for him. It's like, it's not, stability is not an option. It's constant. It's not, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
I think obviously there's a good partnership between Rob Myers, Justin, and myself, is we are very level-headed, but he's very ambitious.
Yeah.
And just, sorry, I went a little off track what you were.
No, that's great. It's just that this. I think there's people that maybe have an illusion about Act 2 is when stability is going to show up and the projects are going to just land and the clients are going to be working with us. And I think that's a fantasy.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Katwo.
No, 100%. I think one of the things that made us stay, or like, we're keep chipping at it. I also see influencers do this, right? You build your audience and then you feed the beast, and that's what it requires. But I think the reason, at least for me, why I'm still in this business and doing it and like looking at the mountains and saying, "Come at me, bro," is the fact that it is a "come at me, bro" sort of mentality expressed. The wish to have that retainer, that coming back client. It's just a wish. I think we're just physically tired. That's why we say that stuff. But it really is. You're in the wrong business. Like, that's just what you signed up for.
It's like, yeah, we do get tired. We do want stability. Yeah. That's okay.
That's okay. That's normal for 99% of the world, or in our case, 99.009. That's what they want, and that's cool. And you don't have to put that on other people, but we decide to put that on ourselves, and we're cool with that. You don't have to check in. We're cool. Like, this is what it makes us feel alive, and that's okay to want that as well,
And I think that entrepreneurial spirit, sometimes we put the mountains there ourselves. Like, there might be, there's a rocky road and there's a big mountain. You're like, I'm gonna conquer it.
The mountain.
I'm gonna just add this other mountain because I'm gonna start this other initiative and I'm gonna make this dinner party group.
There's an easier path.
There definitely is.
Yeah, we just don't take it.
We can't help ourselves.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, there's something fun about it, right?
Yes. Definitely.
And I mean, part of what I heard you saying, Samantha, there too, was it's okay to desire stability.
Yeah.
It's also okay to desire, I want to go build something. I want to make something new. And what's cool is you talked about the word power earlier, and I might use the word influence as well as a similar word. That part of the magic of being a creative entrepreneur is, it's what I call this privilege of being able to take people to places they didn't even know they could go.
100%.
Like, hey, let's go make something together. I can help you get there. And I mean, this is, I think, the power we sort of bring to the world, honestly. So let me try and bring this all home. So this is going to be maybe a wrap-up question as we bring it home. Shawna, if you could advise your younger self back in Act 1, what would you say to her?
Oh, that's a good question.
Keep rowing.
Well, I actually posted about this the other day. When I think about what advice or what I should have known, there's a beauty in the naivete that I had.
Okay, yeah.
That when you're really ambitious, I think had I known how hard it would be to be an owner and build what I've built while being a mom, I might have been like, nah, I don't want to do that.
Well, what's interesting is maybe...
And I think part of not knowing allows you to face those mountains when you get to them instead of give up before. You're like, I don't know if I can do that. And instead you get there and you go, I have to do it. I'm at the cliff, I got to jump. And you do, and you figure it out. And so maybe some of my advice might just be to keep my confidence, but I kind of wouldn't want to tell her anything about it, the journey of like other than you can do it, just keep going.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think. You're right. You wouldn't show up and tell her, here's how hard it's going to be, and here's all the details.
That's what's coming.
Because she would quit, right? She'd be like, screw this.
Kidding me?
Yeah.
I'll go get a job.
Now, what was on your mind
it
as
was
you were
basically
chuckling?
like all these obstacles that are just going to be constantly coming up and thrown at you. Yeah, it's the naivete that helped. Because, you just kind of learn along the way.
So would you give your Act 1 Samantha any advice?
I think,
Or
keep your
encouragement?
head, keep your head. I think, stay confident. You're gonna be okay. It's gonna be very difficult, but it's a struggle, but you're gonna make it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be worth it. I think maybe that's the other thing of like when things are hard, they're worth it. Or like going back to motherhood too, of just like having a child is the hardest, best thing you'll ever do, but it's really, really hard, but totally worth it. And I think birthing a company is very similar. Birthing and raising the company.
All right, Katwo, do you have a word of advice to Katwo Act 1?
Honestly, these are like the best things that have ever been said in a podcast in the history of podcasting, which is naivete is a gift. It's a gift, and not knowing is a gift. So I would take that and just say, and I would say this is just don't do anything out of anger. I think will go a long way. Just if you're upset, just let it breathe. That's the only thing I'll say. And naivete, don't know anything. It's fine. Just go at it. I think the beauty of naivete, and I think because I don't know if it's such a great trait. It's so beautiful. Coming in, not knowing, and doing it anyway. Wow. You can go this far, right?
True.
Yeah, and trusting your instincts. So like that confidence in your instincts. I feel back. I feel when I think back to places that I wish I would have done something differently. My gut was telling me something, and I didn't listen to my gut.
Yeah.
And it's like you have better instincts than you think in that naivete.
Yeah.
So what's fun to think about is that the advice your future self is giving you right now? that naivete, which I love that you pointed that out, is a gift. So be confident, keep rowing, right? Also, trust your gut, right? So it's kind of cool to think the journey just still continues. It's not like, oh, I'm now in Act 2 and that's over and this is, it's like, it's just keeps going.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for this conversation. This has been so much fun.
Yeah.
I appreciate all of you, and it's a thrill and a privilege for me to play a part in all of your stories, and thank you for being so vulnerable and also just for being the awesome leaders that you are.
Well, thank you for having us.
You're so welcome. Thank you,
Joel.
Samantha. Thank you,
Thank you.
Katwo. Thank you, Shawna.
Thank you, everyone.
thank
That was
you.
great.
Now I just want to go to lunch and
I know.
continue the
That's
conversation.
right. That's right.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.